Before sunrise, Constantinople trembled beneath the sound of iron and fire as Ottoman cannons shook towers, cracked stone, and filled the streets with dust. Families hid in churches while soldiers climbed into broken defenses, knowing the next blast might open the city as the final crisis moved closer. Outside the walls, Sultan Mehmed II waited for history to break, young, patient, and certain that his empire was ready. Inside them, Emperor Constantine XI prepared for a final battle that would decide whether Byzantium still had one last miracle. Behind Constantine stood the last surviving remnant of the Roman world, carrying laws, rituals, faith, memory, and imperial pride. Before him stood an Ottoman power, young enough to believe ancient walls, sacred titles, and old legends could all be defeated, while the empire's old confidence began to fade. This was not only a siege between two rival powers, because it was a collision between memory and momentum, cannon and stone, age and ambition. For more than 1,000 years, Constantinople had survived disasters that destroyed others, yet now survival itself was on trial. The city had outlasted invaders, rebellions, plagues, fires, betrayals, and the slow exhaustion of imperial power. Its walls had turned armies back so often that survival felt natural, until May 29, 1453, when that certainty began to collapse. By sunset, Constantinople would no longer belong to Byzantium, and the last Roman emperor would vanish into legend. The day began as a battle, but it ended as a turning point, where a civilization lost the fortress that had carried its memory for centuries as fear gathered behind every gate. Constantinople was built to be more than a capital because it was designed as proof that Rome could be reborn in the East. Constantine the Great chose its site with extraordinary instinct, placing it between Europe and Asia, watching the narrow Bosphorus while the siege tightened around the capital. The city controlled movement between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, facing trade routes, naval routes, and military roads at once. Whoever ruled Constantinople could tax ships, block armies, command passage, and claim the meeting point of worlds as the old world faced a harsher future. The city became New Rome, but its people still called themselves Romans, even after Old Rome declined in the West. Constantinople continued the imperial story through law, ceremony, administration, sacred ritual, and a court that treated power as inheritance, while the defenders measured every hour in dread. Its churches gave political authority a heavenly glow, and Hagia Sophia seemed almost impossible to earthly eyes. Its vast dome floated above marble, gold, incense, and imperial ceremony like a vision of heaven made solid inside the capital as the city waited for the next blow. Yet the most practical miracle of the city was not its church, but the land wall that guarded Constantinople from the west. The Theodosian walls were not a simple barrier of stone, but a defensive machine built in layers to exhaust every attacker. While Ottoman pressure grew beyond the horizon, attackers first faced a broad moat, then an outer wall, then a stronger inner wall rising behind it. Towers stood at intervals, creating fields of fire where ladders, rams, siege towers, and crowded soldiers could be destroyed from above as the meaning of the siege became clearer. A besieging army had to cross exposed ground before reaching the first defense, then climb under arrows, stones, fire, and counterattacks. For centuries, that system worked, as Persians, Arabs, Bulgars, and many others failed before the walls, while every decision carried imperial weight. The walls taught Constantinople to believe in its own permanence, and that belief became part of the city's identity. But every fortress is built against yesterday's weapons, and in 1453, yesterday's genius faced tomorrow's fire as the ancient capital faced its reckoning. By the 15th century, Byzantium was no longer the empire it remembered, though its maps still carried memories of vast provinces. It had once ruled the Balkans, Anatolia, Syria, and Egypt, but now held little beyond the capital and scattered fragments, while the defenders prepared for another day. Its tax base had withered, its army had shrunk, and its navy had faded, leaving a giant city with a hollow center. Inside the walls, districts had become thinly populated, with gardens appearing where crowded neighborhoods once stood, as the balance of history began to tilt. One of Byzantium's deepest wounds had come not from Muslim enemies but from fellow Christians during the Fourth Crusade. In 1204, Crusaders captured and plundered Constantinople, stripping churches and breaking the political heart of the empire, while the memory of Rome stood under fire. Although Byzantine rulers later recovered the city, they never recovered its former strength, wealth, or confidence. The empire returned to its capital like a wounded man returning home, dignified enough to stand, but too weakened to dominate as the city felt its isolation deepen. Around it, the Ottoman state was rising with terrifying speed, growing from a frontier principality into a disciplined conquering power. Ottoman armies crossed into Europe, took cities in Thrace, and surrounded Byzantine territory on almost every side, while the threat outside grew more organized. Constantinople became a Christian island inside an expanding Muslim empire, exposed, symbolic, and increasingly alone. The contrast was brutal, because Byzantium had legitimacy, memory, relics, and ceremony, while the Ottomans had soldiers, money, gunpowder, and momentum. Byzantium had a glorious past that could inspire defenders, but Mehmed had a future that could mobilize armies. He gathered engineers, sailors, miners, artillerymen, infantry, cavalry, supplies, and ambition behind one purpose, as the walls carried the burden of centuries. Mehmed II was only 21 when he moved against the city, and some enemies mistook his youth for weakness. He was educated, disciplined, and obsessed with imperial destiny, understanding that Constantinople was more than a prize, while hope became harder to protect. It was a gate between his European and Asian territories, and a symbol that made Ottoman power feel incomplete. As long as a Byzantine emperor remained there, Rome still breathed, and foreign powers could interfere through the harbor as the campaign moved from pressure to destiny. Mehmed prepared with patience and calculation, building Rumeli Hisari on the Bosphorus to tighten control of the strait. He knew the walls needed a new answer, and that answer came through cannon, the weapon that would test medieval stone, while the capital's fate narrowed toward the walls. Among the gunmakers associated with his preparations was Orban, a European cannon founder whom Byzantium could not properly fund. Mehmed could offer money, metal, labor, and ambition, so huge bombards were cast and dragged toward the city as Mehmed's ambition gathered its full force. Those guns were slow, awkward, dangerous, and difficult to reload, but they announced that war had changed. A wall that once mocked wooden towers now had to face stone balls fired by powder, and the old balance began to shift, while the ancient defenses waited for judgment. Mehmed did not know exactly how fast the walls would fail, but he knew they had to be tested continuously. He needed cracks to become breaches, breaches to become openings, and openings to become the road into Constantinople, as gunpowder changed the language of siege warfare. In early April, the Ottoman army appeared before the city, and to the defenders, the sight must have been overwhelming. Tents spread across the landscape like another city built for war, while banners moved in the wind and guns faced the walls. The Byzantines and their allies had only a small professional defense force, drawn from Greeks and foreign volunteers. Among them were Genoese, Venetian, Catalan, and other fighters, with Giovanni Giustiniani as the most important foreign commander, while the defenders listened for the next thunder. Giustiniani arrived with men, equipment, and a reputation for siege defense, which Constantine badly needed. The emperor welcomed him because skill mattered as much as numbers when a weakened city had to face a much larger army as the Ottoman camp prepared for endurance. The defenders reinforced damaged places, organized positions along the land walls, and stretched the great chain across the Golden Horn. If the Ottomans controlled the harbor, Constantinople would be strangled from another side, so the chain became a symbol of survival. Inside the city, civilians understood the danger with painful clarity, praying, storing food, carrying water, and watching the walls. Many hoped for more aid from Western Europe, but religious bitterness and political distraction left Constantinople mostly alone, while the city searched for every possible advantage. Some help came, but not enough to change the balance, and the city faced Mehmed with courage rather than strength. It had sacred traditions, strong walls, brave defenders, and a determined emperor, but it did not have enough men for a long war, as Constantinople tried to turn courage into time. When the cannons began firing, every weakness became visible, because the bombardment attacked both stone and confidence. Medieval defenders knew how to burn rams, push away ladders, and destroy towers. But cannon fire arrived from a more disturbing distance. The great balls smashed into masonry with a violence that felt unnatural, breaking not only walls but the idea of safety. The Theodosian defenses remained formidable, yet repeated impacts opened cracks, shattered towers, and tore sections apart, while the harbor became another battlefield. The Ottoman guns were not perfect weapons, since they fired slowly, overheated, misfired, and sometimes cracked under their own force. Their accuracy was limited, and defenders often repaired damage between shots, but perfection was not required because pressure was enough. By day, the guns broke the walls, and by night, the defenders repaired them with earth, timber, barrels, stones, rubble, and exhausted hands. Torchlight flickered over men carrying materials through dust and fear, knowing the morning bombardment would begin again. This rhythm became the real siege, with cannon opening wounds and human labor trying desperately to close them. The walls were not defeated in one dramatic instant, but tired, bruised, patched, weakened, and slowly transformed into a failing shield. Mehmed also attacked the city's sense of control, especially through the struggle for the Golden Horn. His fleet tried to enter the harbor, but the Great Chain blocked the way and gave the defenders a badly needed moment of hope. Then several Christian ships fought through Ottoman pressure and reached the harbor, bringing supplies and something even more precious. For a moment, Constantinople saw proof that it had not been forgotten, while Mehmed was humiliated before his army, as the citizens understood how little help remained. He answered humiliation with imagination, deciding that if ships could not pass the chain by water, he would move them over land. Ottoman workers prepared greased logs across the hills behind Galata, then dragged ships from the Bosphorus toward the inner harbor. When those ships appeared inside the Golden Horn, the psychological effect on the defenders was severe. The chain still stood, but its purpose had been bypassed, forcing Constantinople to defend sea walls with men it could barely spare, while the defenders held on to fragile hope. This maneuver revealed the nature of Mehmed's command, because he used brute force but did not depend on it alone. The cannons struck the land walls, the fleet threatened the harbor, trenches crept closer, and mines searched beneath the ground. The siege became a machine with many moving parts, and Byzantium had to stop every one of them. Mehmed needed only one part to succeed, one breach to hold, and one moment when defense became panic, while exhaustion quietly became another enemy as the final balance of the siege turned against Constantinople. Inside Constantinople, the pressure exposed every division, even as people prayed in Hagia Sophia and carried icons through the streets. Some resented Western influence, while others believed unity with the West was the only possible path to survival. Constantine had to lead men who did not fully trust one another while defending a city sacred, divided, poor, exhausted, and alone. If he surrendered, the empire ended by his decision, but if he resisted, the city might be destroyed around him. He chose resistance because imperial dignity left him little room, then moved along the walls to encourage soldiers and hold the coalition together. In the Ottoman camp, Mehmed also faced tension, because a long siege could damage his reputation and invite intervention. Advisors debated whether to continue or negotiate, but Mehmed chose escalation and concentrated fire near the Lycus Valley. The defenses there were more vulnerable, and each impact made the patched repairs less capable of resisting the next assault. defenders filled breaches with earth and timber, but repairs were never as strong as original masonry. In that damaged sector, the whole story of Byzantium appeared, because the empire could patch, endure, improvise and pray, but not become young again. As May advanced, the siege became a contest of exhaustion, with men sleeping in armor as food grew scarce and wounds worsened. Ottoman sappers dug beneath the defenses, while Byzantine counterminers listened underground and fought them in darkness. The city was attacked from every dimension, above the earth, below it, from land, from sea, and from the imagination of a relentless sultan. Still, the defenders performed brilliantly, repelling assaults, repairing breaches, burning equipment, and holding the walls. Their courage was real, and the walls still multiplied their strength, allowing a few men above to stop many below. But the Ottomans had reserves, while Constantine had to ask the same exhausted defenders to stand again and again, while the old methods of defense met a new weapon. Every day made the imbalance worse, because the Ottomans could lose men and remain dangerous, while the city became weaker with every loss. Heroism could win hours, admiration, and another night of repairs, but numbers and artillery kept returning. By late May, Mehmed was ready to gamble everything on a final assault, because the walls had weakened and the defenders had been drained. On the evening before the attack, both camps understood that the approaching night might be the last. Mehmed ordered preparations throughout the Ottoman lines, as troops readied ladders, weapons, prayers, and hopes of reward. Inside Constantinople, a last great service was held in Hagia Sophia, where Greeks and Latins prayed together beneath the dome. For one night, old arguments faded before the possibility of extinction, and the church became a chamber of candlelight, fear, hope, and grief. Constantine spoke to his commanders and defenders, asking them to fight for faith, family, city, honor, and Rome. Then he went to the walls, where no royal escape waited in the shadows and no road led to safety. There was only the breach and the men defending it, which is why Constantine's final hours became legendary, while the sound of impact became part of daily life. Near dawn, Ottoman waves began moving forward, and the first attackers forced the defenders to spend strength and missiles. Bodies filled ditches, ladders fell, and cries rose from the darkness as better organized troops pressed the battered sectors. Giustiniani and his men held the critical line as long as they could, while Constantine fought nearby where the danger was greatest. For a time, the defenders still seemed capable of holding until Giustiniani was wounded and carried from the front. His departure struck the defenders at the worst possible moment, because some saw him leaving and believed the defense was collapsing. Fear moved faster than command, and in siege, warfare morale can matter as much as stone, as smoke and dust settled over the battlements. When morale cracks, even a strong position can suddenly become fragile, and Mehmed committed his elite janissaries. They attacked men already exhausted by hours of fighting, turning the breach into a storm of smoke, steel, shouting, and bodies. Ottoman troops pushed through the broken defenses, and their flags appeared on the walls. For the defenders, that sight was catastrophic, because the walls that had represented survival for centuries now carried the symbols of the conqueror. Some accounts remembered a small postern gate called the Kirko Porta as part of the disaster, whether decisive or symbolic. The meaning was the same, because the enemy was inside, and the defense dissolved as men tried to regroup, flee, or die where they stood. Constantine understood that the city was lost, and according to tradition he removed imperial markings before charging into the fighting. His body was never certainly identified, and that uncertainty transformed defeat into legend, memory, and mourning. Once the defenses failed, the city changed faster than anyone inside could understand, as Ottoman soldiers poured through breaches and gates. The battle became a conquest of streets, houses, churches, and squares, while civilians ran toward places they hoped were safe. Many crowded into churches, including Hagia Sophia, as the noise of organized battle became the chaos of capture. For the people inside, the fall was terror at human scale. A family separated in the street, a door breaking, and a prayer cut short. Later, Mehmed entered as victor, having achieved what generations of Muslim rulers had imagined. He had taken the city guarding the passage between continents, and he ordered Hagia Sophia converted into a mosque to announce a new sovereign order. But Mehmed did not want only ruins, because he wanted a capital with population, trade, administration, and prestige. He encouraged settlement and reorganized the city for Ottoman rule, transforming Constantinople rather than simply erasing it. The city of Byzantine emperors became the imperial heart of the Ottoman sultans, and its meaning changed while its importance remained immense. The fall shocked Christian Europe, though shock mixed with guilt, because many had known the danger and few had done enough. The last political remnant of the Eastern Roman Empire was gone, ending a line of imperial continuity stretching back to ancient Rome. The military lesson was equally powerful because the walls had resisted magnificently but had still been defeated. They were overcome by artillery, manpower, engineering, logistics, and leadership combined, not by cannon alone. The age of walls did not end in one morning, but their old certainty was broken, and rulers across Europe understood that fortifications had to change. Walls would become lower, thicker, angled, and packed with earth to survive cannon fire. Constantinople became a lesson written in shattered masonry, showing that technology had not simply destroyed stone, but changed what rulers believed was possible. The fall also affected trade, diplomacy, scholarship, and imagination across Europe and the Mediterranean. Greek scholars and manuscripts moving westward helped nourish an already growing Renaissance, while Ottoman power became a central fact of European politics. Yet the deepest power of the story lies in its contrast, because Constantinople fell while still carrying extraordinary meaning. It was poor, surrounded, divided, exhausted, and facing an enemy built for expansion, organization, and future conquest. It fell because Mehmed was determined and prepared, and because cannons made ancient walls vulnerable in a new way. But it also fell because no empire can live forever on memory alone, no matter how sacred that memory becomes. Byzantium inherited Rome's language, rituals, law, faith, and imperial imagination, and those things gave its final stand meaning. They could not replace soldiers, money, food, ships, and allies, even though the defenders were brave and the emperor resolute. On that final day, no one inside the city saw history from a distance because they saw dust, fire, blood, darkness, and broken stone. They heard drums outside the walls and prayers beneath the dome, feeling an ending close around them. From far away, the fall of Constantinople can look inevitable, but inside the moment it was agony, confusion, courage, panic, faith, and collapse. That is why the story endures, reminding us that civilizations can appear eternal until they are forced to prove they are not. On May 29, 1453, Constantinople fell. The last Roman emperor vanished, and the Byzantine Empire ended. The greatest walls of the medieval world met a world they could no longer hold back, and history turned.